be talking to their target audience with, or to their consumers with the right messaging. And there's nothing better than gamifying it or giving away free things, doing contests and things like that. So everybody really.
What about, is there any certain elements where they want to engage with the younger, fresh grads or people in students in high school or university that somehow may be able to create brand awareness that after they graduate, they will start, when they have the buying power or purchase power, they will start to invest in that certain product?
I'm going to repeat myself again, and
okay.
All my brands want to do that.
Okay.
The reason being, like I said, for a lot of my brands, they're very younger generation targeted. So for a Red Bull, for example, they want to target people who are in high school. And,
so it's more like lifestyle, right?
Yeah, and be a part of their lifestyles. Maybelline wants to be there because it wants to be in every girl who goes to university or high school in their purse, because that's the brand that they want to be associated with. So, and Red Bull does this really well, and even here in Malaysia, Red Bull actually goes to high schools and universities and has their ambassadors embedded in not every, but most of the schools and universities. And these are people who are engaging their friends and telling them that, oh, Red Bull has this really cool finger-breaking event happening at Zouk this weekend, we should all be going there. And everybody's tweeting about it, Facebooking about it, and sharing it with their friends. So for all of my brands, and it could be me because I handle that genre of brands, but for almost all of my brands, yeah.
And Jason, do you have any case studies about, or maybe we can go back to the question about how social media is transforming education in Philippines?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I think that in terms of education, we have a long way to go into maximizing its potential on social. But the first steps are there, very, very well taken, I think. For example, we have the Department of Education. Their Twitter handle is @DepEd, very easy to remember, DEPED. So there used to be an issue when I was a college student there, whereby it was so hard to get news on weather. I mean, I spent a lot of time here in Malaysia, and the weather here is fantastic. In the Philippines, we get one super typhoon every year. When I say super typhoon, as in, like, it's big, it's like people lose their homes and their lives. And on a regular basis, though, we get really heavy rains as well. So school cancellations are very common. The problem with those is it's so hard to get information because, the internet's so noisy, and you'd never know who to really believe, right? So I like the initiative of the schools, the educational systems. This is just a very basic example. They're actually using their Twitter accounts to announce class suspensions, cancellations, and even schedules. So, yeah. Okay. So I thought that was very helpful. And last year we had a really bad calamity. And this is not directly related into education, but this is how social media really changed the way the country was functioning in a way, because we had a hashtag #RescuePH. Actually, one of the speakers later this afternoon, I think he's one of the people instrumental behind it. The thing was, what it did was it really simplified how information was transferred from government agencies and NGOs to the people, and vice versa. So if only we could, I suppose we are on the way to making this really education-based as well. But yeah, as I said, the steps are there to make things simple. Social media, I think, makes things very simple because it's real-time and it's relevant. And when news and any information is real-time, it becomes so much more powerful.
Actually, I just want to add on that. Social media has made my life much easier, especially when it comes to reporting. So you would talk about floods in Manila last year, right? So an interesting case was that journalists couldn't reach those places by themselves in persons. So what Filipino journalists did was to follow the certain hashtag and then use the information to inform the public about that. So You see, citizen journalists, like even social media users, make it a lot easier for journalists to report information because information is all there. You just need to sit with your laptop. Well, actually, that's no excuse for journalists who have to go out and do reporting. But because at the time, floods took place, and so it was hard for people to travel to those places, right? And people who are on the ground have the duty to, especially because they have they can use social media platforms in order to, provide information to journalists. And so journalists have the duty to bring that information to, other side of the country. So social media makes my life much easier. That's the point.
Do you have any instances where, because you may have feedback coming up from the public, not about crisis, right? Let's talk about probably some other incidents where you posted a Twitter updates or on your Facebook, and then you get certain feedbacks. And sometimes you get so much information, you may need time to sort out which one is the one that is accurate, with the most accuracy. So how do you handle that?
So we're talking about verification on social media. So sometimes I see news being shared on my Facebook wall, on Twitter. So I do not take it and use it all of a sudden. I need to also spend a few minutes verifying whether the sources of that information or news are reliable. So I see a lot of shares. Sometimes the information that is shared is not even true, it's just rumored. So I'm careful with that whenever I select information on social media. There's so much information out there, and you need to filter. Like, take the one that you want, take the one that you trust, that is reliable. So delay. Take some time before believing something on social media.
I believe that that's a saying that goes, even though as a news agency, right, accuracy and credibility is the first thing that we should look at. So even though you are the first one that get news, you need to ensure that you check back the sources before you break the news out. So even though there's slight delay, but still credibility is something that you need years to build, right? But just a few seconds, you might lose it. And looking back at the traditional media, right? In the newsroom right now, what happened is we in Malaysia, for example, like Esther and Wani, right? We are looking at how we can bring a more integrated experience to our audiences when they are receiving news. So apart from TV presentation of our news, we try to change it. It's no longer about news reading and then reading out from a prompter. We still do that, we still have that. But at the same time, how can we as a journalist, right, we look at the data that we have and then we try to decipher it. What's the meaning behind it? So we give more insight to our audiences. And so it becomes like editorial, it goes to a greater height, rather than just giving out breaking news, this is what happened. But at the same time, this is the fact. And from the left and right and the center, these are what the sources are saying. So this is what we're trying to do. And then at the same time, how can we push a more a kind of different kind of product into mobile and also website? And so we are also looking at how can we create a more comprehensive content from TV and then with our website. Like Rachan, I would like to ask you, like for example in Singapore, maybe you can look at Channel News Asia or maybe some other channels that you may know of. What is the strategy that they're applying in terms of how do they push the content from TV to web, or whether or not at the same time they are just looking at the same incident, but then they report it at a different, or approaching it differently in terms of content or branding, anything?
So I think everybody in Singapore, the news channels like Channel News Asia, they've all embraced social. And everybody has a Twitter, everybody has a Facebook, and all of that. I think what they do really well is that on Twitter, their news feeds are a lot more than what they're doing on TV, and a lot more recent. It allows people or consumers like us to go back and comment on that and participate in that conversation. So a lot of the newer generation, I'm not going to say younger anymore, but the newer generation actually prefers that, that source of consuming news, or that way of consuming news, because it allows them to have a conversation, it allows them to interact with that. Watching it on TV is no longer making sense for them. Also, everybody's on the move. Nobody really has the luxury, or most of us don't have the luxury of sitting at home and watching news day in and day out. We're literally on the move. So, but I think it's been embraced extremely well, and everybody's doing a really, really good job at it. There's scope to improve, and with technology is becoming better, everybody's going to do that, but it's doing well.
And because just now you touch on TV, and then you touch on Twitter, that you engage them, right? So that's this term where we call it social TV, right? So when you're looking at the TV show, and probably the producer, content producer, or people from that production team, they're trying to engage with the audiences. So hey, what do you think about this contestant get the kick out from this round? So I would like to ask this question, address you to Jason. In Philippines, in terms of the TV industry, so most probably it would be reality show, right? Where you have this social TV kind of phenomenon. Do you have any examples that you can share with us where they are doing a pretty good job, or it's getting there in terms of social TV in Philippines?
Wow, put against the wall here. I'm not a big fan of reality shows, to be honest. It's
Philippines?
I know. That's one thing people always tell me. You're Filipino, you don't like reality TV, you don't like singing contests? And no, I don't, honestly. So I'm not a good person to ask about my opinions. I'll keep it to myself. I don't want to be quoted on the live stream. Please do not tweet. I want to be able to go home. So, no, but can I give another example though? News. News is very big on social, I think, in my country. What I find really interesting and really cool is how the big Twitter accounts are news accounts, because it's so easy to get news, right, via Twitter. It's so fast, and you can get so much information in a short span of time. I commute a lot. I have 3 rides to get to work. So it's 1 train, and then a 2nd train, and then a bus. So during that time, that's when I actually get my news fix. It's 45 minutes, and in that 45 minutes, that's usually how long a primetime TV news is. How many pieces of news can you get, right, in a TV show? Those are probably the very important highlights of the day. But what I really appreciate about Twitter is a lot of news sites, not just the formal news, but citizen news and community news sites as well. They are very inquisitive when it comes to people. They're very crowdsourced in a way, in their mentality. I'll give an example, Rappler.com, that's RAPPLER.com. I like how they really ask for discussions. A lot of them, they tweet a news, right? And then the next tweet is usually, what do you think of blah, blah, blah. They ask for your opinion. And in the short span of time, as compared with the other news sites that it has been around, it has grown quite massive in terms of following. I'm a big fan of the news from that site. I do think that, well, because they have a lot of young writers, as in students, who contribute as well. Maybe the experience does not appear so much on a lot of the articles, the ones written by the younger ones. But in terms of relevance, quality, and application, I believe, it's just a great way to get information. Because, first of all, it's through social. It's exactly what happened 3 minutes ago, right? It's not something that happened 3 hours ago. And in our industry, especially social listening, if you miss a window of 1 or 2 hours, it could have big implications, not just to you personally, but to a big brand, for example, or to a big event, an issue in the country. So in terms of social TV, I think news sites have done it quite well, but I'm not sure if it's leading them back to the television, because for me, for example, I don't watch news anymore on TV. I just follow their Twitter accounts and I like their Facebook pages, because I get more in a shorter span of time. Yeah.
What about in terms of news aggregation applications? What are the top ones that is really popular in Cambodia and then in Singapore and then in Philippines. Social news apps. Social news reader like Pulse or anything else. Is it same in most of the markets? Like in Malaysia, for myself, actually, personally, I use Pulse, and then occasionally I switch it to Google Currents, and then, occasionally would switch to Flipboard, for example, or maybe subscribe to Google alerts. So is the trend the same? I'm just curious. Out of curiosity, I just want to know.
Well, newspapers in Cambodia have their own apps. For example, one of the 2 English leading newspapers is called the Phnom Penh Post. So the Phnom Penh Post is very advanced. They are very social media savvy, and they created their own app and released it. It's free. People can read news after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So they try to sell newspaper in the morning, and after 3, every news article is online on the website. So they have their own apps, and I see that they work really, really well. As I said before, the mobile subscriptions in Cambodia are more than 100%. It's like one person owns 2 mobile phones and 2 SIM cards. Yeah, I have 2 mobile phones and have 3 or 4 SIM cards myself.
Wow.
So, a lot of people, like young people my age, 20, 22, 23, have 2 mobile phones and even have more SIM cards.
But then you use it for probably professionally and then personally, and then what else for the other 2?
Well, I just want to test which one is better for me,
So you're looking at the telcos, actually. You're looking at what kind of services is provided by different telcos, and then you're trying to experiment which one has more coverage and stuff.
But for other young people, they, because the competition among mobile operators in Cambodia is really fierce. We have nearly 10 mobile operators and more than 40 ISP providers. So for the past 2 years, the competition is really fierce. So the price of, for example, mobile phones and even the cost of SMS has driven down, by the competition, and that's a good sign for the market to grow in Cambodia. And now a lot of companies and even non-profit world are looking at social media and using mobile in order to reach out to the younger population in Cambodia. And actually, 60 to 70% of the whole population are under 30 years old in my country.
So it's safe to say that actually Cambodia is a great market to look at for.
It's a new market. It's potential. It's untapped into at the moment. And I've been contacted by a lot of agencies to help them set up digital services and businesses, because not many people are looking at it at the moment. So it's actually a good chance.
And going to Rachna, so because just now we touched about news, and then just now we touched about education, and then we touched about app economy. And then is there any other, like in Singapore currently, you based in Singapore in majority of your time, right?
Yes.
So, and then the brands that you handled earlier, just now you said it was more to Gen Y. But then if you want to look at the campaigns that probably want to target at the, not to say older generation, but then probably
Experienced generation,
or the more mature demographic. There are people that they are tech savvy. They are coming online.
Yep.
My mom herself, she uses YouTube actively on daily basis.
My mom's on Facebook.
Right? Yeah, so
Scary,
they're on Facebook, they're on YouTube, Twitter not yet, thankfully, or else they will have followers and then know what's happening on a day-to-day basis. But then, so is there any examples that probably you may have heard of, because I understand you handle the younger brands, but what about the other brands that would target at the more mature market?
Like you said, I mean, the more the mature, the experienced generation is all on the social platform.
And
like
then
I
the challenge. What about the challenge?
And I think it's quite difficult for us to go back to the brands and try and explain it to them. If I go, we were talking about it over breakfast this morning. Like I have had clients, like hotel clients, which are global hotels, hotel chains, which are family-owned businesses. The person who owns the hotel is probably 60, 70
Previous generation,
plus.
earlier generations.
And for him to shell out that money from his pocket and give it to social instead of doing a beautiful TV ad on TV is a big step. And it's really difficult for us as agencies to go and convince this generation or these brands to say that, no, you know, actually, like my mom, for example, she's on Facebook, she's on LinkedIn. I haven't checked my Twitter, but I won't be surprised if she's following me on Twitter. But she's the one who would decide where we would stay if we were to go on a holiday. And if this hotel is talking to her, there's nothing more perfect like that.
Did she book it online?
Oh yeah, and she books all holidays
really
online. She's awesome, but yeah. And everybody's doing that. I mean, yesterday we were talking about I think one of the speakers was talking about some of the gaming apps that are coming onto Facebook, and their target audience is the younger generation. But a lot of these apps like Farmville, and I mean, they're all gone now, but even the newer apps are all being played by housewives who are 35 plus. So our targeting is absolutely wrong. The apps that we're creating, we're targeting the absolutely wrong people, the wrong audience. So, but as an agency, it's very difficult for me to go and explain this to my brand. I mean, I can have tons and tons of data trying to show the number of people who are on Facebook, the age, the demographics, the psychographics, and all of that. But yeah, it's a challenge.
Because now that we are talking about ads, right, and then you're creating campaigns on social and internet, if you want to look at and break it down in percentage, or more or less, just average, right, how many of your clients actually still invest more in TV and radio ads? And then or maybe they just put a ton of money in building an app and social and go internet and build a Facebook or Twitter campaigns, for example?
On an average, I would say at least 90% of my clients are still very heavy on TV or print, depending on which country they are.
Opportunity for TV.
Yeah, but that's changing because people like us from the agency are going in there and saying, nobody's watching TV on a TV anymore. I mean, there's absolutely an opportunity for TV, and
it is an opportunity, yes. Second screen and third screen,
there is a need and requirement for every opportunity. Yeah. But I mean, all of us in the room, and I don't know how many of you consume any kind of, like, I'm a big fan of Grey's Anatomy, and I've watched all my Grey's Anatomy on my iPad. Simply because I travel so much. But that's TV content that I'm consuming. So web TV is really, really big for me. I'm big on YouTube. So if you're showing me an ad on YouTube, or while I'm watching Grey's Anatomy, if you show me an ad there, absolutely I'm watching it. But if you're doing a TV ad on TV, and if I'm the audience, I'm honestly not watching it. So I forgot what your question was, sorry.
It's okay, just bear with the discussion. But because just now you mentioned about ads on YouTube and probably on social media, what is your opinion about mobile ads? Because from what I understand is that Facebook is trying to, and Twitter is working on it as well, to integrate ads into so that they can monetize it, right? So what is your personal opinion? So I would like to probably address Jason and you, Rachna, yourself.
If I may answer that, that's my bread and butter. I cannot say no ads. I would be out of a job then. Yeah.
But then what is the strategy? What is the right strategy to make it right so that
I think the few things that are really important for me as a media person, it needs to be highly targeted, extremely relevant, and not annoying. Sometimes it's just really, really annoying when I'm watching the same ad on YouTube over and over and over again on every video I go to, simply because that brand has a lot more money than the other brands. It's very annoying. So it needs to be not annoying, highly targeted, and extremely relevant to me.
And Jason?
I'd actually like to build up on her point earlier about ad spend. Interesting statistics from the Philippines, if you'd like to note it down. Approximately for 2012, there was about 100 billion pesos. You can just do the conversion later, but about 100 billion, more or less, ad spend for the year. Any guesses on how much of that went on digital, on social? Any guesses, percentage? I'll give you a Mentos. 2%. That's tiny,
Wow.
considering that the Philippines has more or less about 90 plus million people, maybe 96, 97, don't quote me on that. But what you can do, quote, is from that number, nearly 100, let's put it at nearly 100, there are 33 million internet users. 33 million. As of last month, there are 33 million. Cambodia is 15 million, right? She has 15 million people in her country. On Facebook, there are about 31 million alone in the Philippines. So the market is so huge, but the ad spend for that avenue is not so much yet. And that's because traditional media, I think we would all agree here, is still really powerful. It can reach a lot more people until, I believe, internet and mobile becomes more accessible. And by accessible, I mean dirt cheap. I think that's the only barrier, I guess, and of course the infrastructure. As for ads, what was the question for
Mobile
that?
ads.
Mobile ads. I actually have the same sentiments as you. Sometimes, I'm playing games and the thing stops to show me an ad. It's annoying. And it makes me not want to play, and especially if it's, I'll give an example, it was Angry Birds. I really, really like Angry Birds. Like every round, they'll show you an Angry Birds ad. Okay, I'm playing it. I get it. And if a brand would do that, I think it would just really turn off people, right? So I agree it has to be very, very targeted. It has to be people that are interested in that or potentially interested. Otherwise, you're just going to be alienating a potential market.
So we can say that for mobile ads, right, you cannot really say, oh, I want to reach out to the most people, that's why I push it in all across my games or all across my product and services, right? So have you dealt with any brands that